Hello everyone, this is Shilpa here. Today I want to talk about part 2 of our journey, of our patient's journey into motherhood. So this is a 34-year-old lady who came to see me. She has this history of multiple PPMR, which is preterm premature membrane rupture. So her amniotic sac ruptures in preterm, and she's lost two babies, unfortunately. So she wants homeopathy to help her conceive, help her go to full term and deliver a healthy baby, and at the same time gain that confidence in herself and her body. So far we've given her two prescriptions, Fagus sylvaticus in a 200 and a 1 monthly doses, and then we've given her progesterone 30C during ovulation. The reason we chose Fagus because she showed in the first consult a Fagus state that was about being trapped in her body, feeling really heavy like concrete and weighed down. She wanted to be able to open up and fly, and this whole process of trying and struggling to fly and float, and that was the Fagus state. And then we saw an emerging progesterone state where she wanted this confidence to be a quiet, calm, balanced, stable woman where she could own herself in her body, she could own her space, and she could let go her creativity and be able to trust herself more. And with progesterone and Fagus, we could see she was relaxing, she was trusting her body. The dreams showed that she was opening up, and she was moving in a more balanced state of mind and body. So that was where we left at part 1. Now, if you haven't looked at that, I would really encourage you to look at that part and see her process, because that is really important understanding before you understand what's part 2 bringing for us and the next phase of her journey. Yeah, so let's move on to part 2. Now, what actually happened was, when she was moving on with these remedies, there was a very strong acute which came up in April 2022, which is about 6 months into the treatment process. And she had this acute urinary tract infection. So she calls me. She says it's really urgent. It's really, really frequent urging for urination. And then she's having blood in the urine. She has the severe pain in the pelvis and the bladder. And she feels something's going to break. So that was the time we looked at the acute. And what we found was, she felt the experience was as if when she was pregnant with those two babies. It triggered all those really scary experiences of her pregnancy losses. And she felt a similar type of pain during the infection. And she was wondering whether it could affect her fertility because it's in the same region. Is something tearing inside? What's going on? So I asked her about the trigger, what exactly happened, what was going on? And she said things around her business partner are not good. It's turned nasty. Remember, she's having conflict with her business partner, and she's thinking of breaking up the partnership. Now there's a lot of accusations. She's starting accusing her in emails. And for the very first time, our patient is feeling a lot of anger. And she says, I feel the need to be the strong, stable woman. And this is the idea she portrays. Her business partner thinks that I'm a very calm, robust, sturdy person. And this is always I need to be. And it suddenly brought back a lot of memories from my childhood with my mom. So that was interesting. What was the connection here? And she said, Mom's been diagnosed as bipolar since she's ever known or understood. So Mom's on lithium, and she also has hypothyroidism. Now, when her mom was a teenager, she's had a bad nervous breakdown. She was sent to the psychiatric ward, and she was put on some medications, and that's how she's been functioning all her life. And then she said, Mom's a very family-centered person. She's grown up in Manly with 4 generations together. That is the life she's had. That is the bubble she lives in. All of her friends are nearby. Everyone she's known all her life everyone is nearby. So, and she's always home. She was always home since she's known her, or she's just at the shops around the corner. Now, everyone is moving out, finding their own place in life, and it's starting to affect her mom. So she's staying up all night worrying about her children. She's become emotional. She's become very difficult. She's blaming everyone. And it's a very intense experience with the mom. Now remember, she was staying with her mom for a few months now because she is stuck during lockdown. And, she remembers when she was little, our patient was little, her mom had another mental breakdown and she was hospitalized. Now, that was one of the most intense period for her because she's known her mother in one way all her life. And then when she got into that real breakdown period, our patient was shocked and confused. It was like the role of the mother reversed at that point. She said my mother was completely unhinged. For some reason, she stopped her medications or something, and that was how she went into that breakdown. And whatever she was suppressing all her life started coming out. It was weird to see her in that state because she was like a baby. She could not be alone. And our patient was shocked beyond words. Like, she felt, who is my real mother? Who are you? She was very, very sensitive to people judging her. She was saying to her children, don't talk to anyone about my condition. So her patient started getting embarrassed about her mom doing something weird. And she went into that denial and shock state for a while. And then she says mom had unresolved grief since she was a child. She never talked about it. She's never resolved the original trauma. And then there was this trauma from her failed career. And during that mental breakdown, she said she's not achieved anything in her career because of her children. And she was on medications to feel normal. And now she doesn't know who she is anymore. So it was like sort of a disassociation and loss of her identity and her boundaries. And she says, my dad looks after her. He's looked after her all her life. So she feels sorry for her dad. Now, his role is to keep her safe from another breakdown because the breakdown ends up in a psychiatric ward in the hospital. So the dad is a rock. He's dependable. He's consistent. He's balancing her. And she needs him all the time to feel grounded because she was completely unmoved, drifting and unhinged during that breakdown. So dad is a reference point. And from that point also, the patient felt the pressure to protect her mom. So I asked her about this pressure to protect mom, and she said, I've always withheld my emotions to protect her since then. At times I wanted to be a baby, I wanted to scream on the floor, I wanted to throw tantrums, but I couldn't do that because mom was the baby. So I wanted somebody to look after me as a child. And then she starts crying. She could never be the baby and the child. It's not fair. I need to be the strong one. And now even in this relationship, in this partnership with a business partner, she is the strong one. So she felt, who is protecting me? I want to let go of this responsibility. I want somebody to carry me on the shoulder. I want somebody to say it's going to be okay. So in a way, her mother was the baby and she was the mom, and she never got to be the baby. And then that's the reason she was desperate to start her own business before her first child because she did not want to blame her kids for her happiness because her mother blamed their existence because that she felt that was why she could never do something in her life. She's always been at home. So you see, very raw emotions of really suppressed past trauma came up during this acute UTI and this nasty conflict with her business partner. And we see a number of blocks coming up here. One is this prenatal block, probably this unresolved grief and trauma in a mother that she has carried, and now she is suffering, her mother's suffering. So sometimes children do that. If a parent is suffering, they take on that burden and they carry it with them. And that is the block that is really, holding her right now. And then we also have a miasmatic block. There is very strong inherent and dominant syphilitic miasm. Her mother has bipolar. She goes completely out of control and unhinged. And she has Graves, so it's autoimmune. And then she's now miscarrying and losing it. So she's inherited that destructive miasm and going out of control miasm. That is the pattern she's going through. But deeper than that, she's also carrying the grief and the trauma her mom had. And the roles were reversed. She was the mother, and the mother was the baby. So can you see where this is coming from? That is what we really need to resolve so that she can be the mother she wants to be. So where do we go from here? So now if you realize the state of the mother is very interesting and the state of our patient is very interesting. This is what we have the amniotic fluid or the Amnii Liquor layer. Again, this is a Matridonal remedy, but I'll tell you physiologically what the amniotic fluid is about, the layer is about. Physiologically, if you look at the amniotic sac, the fetus grows in this and it's surrounded by the fluid. And initially the mother makes the amniotic fluid, but then it is made by the fetus itself. So it's the urine of the fetus. The fetus swallows and excretes the fluid and the cycle continues, right? Now this is a buffer. It's a shock absorber. It regulates temperature. It's a bubble in which the fetus is safe. And it also helps defend against infections. And it is a space to move so the muscles and the bones can develop properly. It lubricates and it gives the child the space to really move the way it wants to inside the trapped environment. And can you see how physiologically, something is coming up which our patient needs as well, which is the space to move and the space to be. And when the waters break, the amniotic sac tears, and then the fluid begins to leak, and that's when the mother goes into labor. And this is the disturbed place in her own state as well, right? Now, if you go and look at the mother, you can see the mother also has a very strong matridonal state. Now, these are the themes of a matridonal remedy, which is, the remedies made from the maternal tissue during pregnancy and birth. So you see this really weak, vulnerable, spacey, dreamy state. The mother has a very poor sense of self and identity, even, since her life. She's immature, she's ungrounded, she says she's unhinged when she went into that, out of control nervous breakdown. Then she's confused, she's vague, she's unfocused, and she's constantly changing. And so the patient, even as a child, did not know who her real mother was. And her mother was always very dependent, very clingy, very childish, very impulsive, and overreacting and oversensitive, and, or she was withdrawn and passive. So these were the two states that she went through. And this was the mother. And you can see the matridonal state was really an inherited state. And now, when you look into the matridonal remedy, which is a proven remedy from our Medica books, and I'm going to look into Dr. Ghanshyam's Mammals in Matridonal book because he has a beautiful understanding of these remedies based on real provings, and I'll take you there. I've just opened it in my software and you can see it's a remedy made from the amniotic fluid, Amnii Liquor, and we have 3 provings conducted by Stevenson in 1924. So it's an old remedy, but we don't know much about it. And then it was after in 2004 proven by Melissa and then Julian in 2009, right? So with the matridonal remedies, we have 2 different groups of remedies, he says. The first group is from these remedies that are sourced from the womb life, right? So they are the remedies like, Amnii Liquor, they are the umbilical cord, the placenta, the vernix, which is the fatty layer protecting the fetus. And the others are, made from the human milk, like maternum, like humanum, and also the hormones, the pregnancy hormones. So what you see in these remedies which are sourced from the womb life, is that they are very immature. They express a womb life characteristics. They need an envelope, they need a covering, they need a protection, otherwise they feel very exposed and very vulnerable. They feel very lightheaded, dreamy, and they feel very ungrounded energetically. So when they ground themselves, they can feel dizzy, confused, muddled, unorganized, chaotic, vague, unfocused, foggy, and lost, with poor sense of boundaries and are oversensitive. This was the state of the mother during her emotional and mental breakdown, right? Now, that's the reason that these remedies can really appear very identical. All these remedies, the amniotic fluid, the umbilical cord, the placenta, and the vernix. But what we need to do is we have to go and then read and fine tune and find what exactly, which remedy of these matches our patients. The reason I went to amniotic fluid was for some important reasons, which I'm going to talk about now. So one thing about Liquor Amnii are they're very mild, soft, and gentle people. And what you see also is that they're very, very attached to the mother. You can see there is a problem of being separated from their mother, either from the womb or after birth. So they're very, very attached to the mother, and once they feel a threat of separation, they get frightened. Now, physically, they could look well built and sturdy, but internally, they're very soft and very vulnerable. And what's very interesting is that they always exhibit a very strong, prominent water theme. They love being in water, they love swimming, bathing, they often feel very relaxed in water. And that water theme can also be expressed as thirst, salivation, perspiration, or urination. So the other things that you can, you look into and you find that there is this gentleness. They rarely break into anger. The other things I found is being in a bubble, floating, this beautiful experience of, being in water or underwater, and the softness and velvety feel. And the very vibrationally sensitive, they pick up atmospheric energies. And there is this connection with ancestors and thoughts of ancestors and past life experiences. There is a sensation of the body floating in sea. They like water, bathing, relaxing, and they lack control and want control. So there is the feeling of no boundaries, being in the space in between, and there's excessive attachment to mother. They take on their mother's mood and they want to be carried. And then you have a lot of affinities around birth, pregnancy, and trauma. But what's important in our patient is there is intrauterine threat, premature induction of labor, and leaking of amniotic fluid. And then there is this grief. And this is grief that she's inherited with the history of abortion and miscarriages. So let's see what's the state our patient has inherited with around this whole amniotic fluid state. She looks well and sturdy, but she's soft and vulnerable. She's very attached to her mother, and there is this threat of separation, which you could see when she was a little girl, where she had those dreams, if you remember, and those really fearful dreams, and she did not know where they came from. She takes on her mother's moods and emotions, and she's constantly stressed around that. And then you see this prominent water theme. She's swimming and floating, and she's wants to swim in the sea every day. And the UTIs, history of those, And there is this calm, protected, safe state that she wants to be in. And then some existential fears that she's had, some past like trauma. Remember, she spoke about that in the first consult where she said, I don't know why I get those really bad dreams. She fears men. She fears being, robots or things or monsters under her bed. So she says it's probably related to past life trauma. We don't know. Her mom could have been, through some traumatic experience as a little girl when she had her mental breakdown. We have no information, but somehow the daughter has now taken on that and she's suffering from that. And there is this lack of control and wants control. Lack of control, and the amniotic fluid breaks open, the sac breaks open, and she goes into miscarriage. And she wants control over herself and her body here. And physically, you can see the threat, some form of question mark threat. Doctors haven't been able to diagnose, but we can see there's something going on where there is some premature induction of labor. She leaks amniotic fluid and she has those premature preterm membrane ruptures. And then there is this grief that she's carrying on, and then those intense spasms and colics that happen 3 days until she goes into labor whenever she has the membrane rupture. And same spasms and colics are going on right now with the UTIs, and it's the same type of threat that she's feeling inside her mind and body when she's undergoing that hematuria. And it's the urinary infection, remember, and the amniotic fluid is made from the fetal urine. How interesting is that? So she got amniotic fluid 1 dose, right? So I just wanted to, because she's still in the state of dreaming, and it has the syphilitic miasm, it has the prenatal block that we're looking, and we are here to now dissolve the mother's block, the mother's state that she's inherited, which probably is one of the major inherited causative factor for her premature rupture. So she comes back after a month and she says, I'm very stable mood-wise, and emotionally I've cooled down. And she says, I'm getting my power back. And she says around her business partner, she's just unpredictable, which is exactly the words she's used for a mother. The mother is unpredictable. In fact, she's formed this relationship with the business partner who is exactly like her mother. That's quite interesting. And then she says, I dreamt of butterflies. Just after the amniotic fluid remedy, she had these intense dreams. And she says, there is a spiritual association of my babies with butterflies. I'm surrounded by a swarm of butterflies. I'm very elated. And then suddenly one of the butterflies went into my mouth and started dissolving. And I was trying not to let it dissolve. I was concerned it will disintegrate and hope it will not die. And she says these were the same feelings of being pregnant. There was this elation and then this ominous aspect of, losing the babies. And then the next night of the butterfly dreams, she dreamt of being pregnant. Doctors said I was pregnant, but she's not convinced. She said, we take an USG, and then in the USG, she finds the baby has a cord around the neck and suffocates and dies. So there is a very deep awareness, and she's experiencing the same trauma what she went through when she lost her babies. And then she says, but there is an emotional support from a friend who has a gentle, loving presence. So she feels okay. She feels a resolution in those dreams. And then she says, I've been in a good space this month. I've been feeling nurtured. I'm genuinely supported by the community in New Zealand. I feel held. I can be vulnerable. I'm super grateful, and it is a very satisfying space to be. So something is radiating where she's now finding herself the space that she needs to. She can just be. And then she says, I had a very different period this time. Since she's lost her babies, every period she's had these really aching legs, the exact same experience that she had before she went into miscarriage. And she says, this is the first time I've not had achy legs. And also my periods were heavier after, she lost the babies. And she says, now they're no longer heavier. They're like the normal periods I used to get when I was a teenage girl without any PMS. And she's getting a lot of itching around the nipples. So this is a very important detox happening here. She's moving miasms as well. She's no longer in the syphilitic miasm. Some things, the rash coming up, the itching coming up tells you that it's moving in the positive direction towards Sora. And now she says, I'm hoping to fall pregnant. And she's now worried whether it will be harder this time. Last year it was very easy to fall pregnant. She's never had problems conceiving, remember? It was just the miscarriages that she had. So she is now ready, and she internally, mentally, physically, spiritually, she's ready to go to the next level. So at this point, she's not pregnant. So what we do is we try and understand what other things are coming up for her. Then she said, I went to the dentist and he pulled out a tooth. And then after that, she's having this overwhelming feeling like she wants to cry all the time. She feels like, I need to cry like this all the time. Even if it hurts, I like it. So there is an emotional release of grief and trauma happening with the Amnii. So there's something really interesting going on here. And then she lives a really healthy lifestyle. She regularly practices yoga and meditation. And she says, during yoga, my favorite pose is the bridge pose, where the chest opens up and the neck extends, and I'm always hunched up. So, this is about a space that she needs. And this is about this whole musculoskeletal system. Remember, the amniotic fluid is all about, having the space, and the muscles and the bones develop in the child because the amniotic fluid gives the child the space to move. And that's exactly the source is coming up here. And she says, during meditation, I saw a door opening, I saw space, I saw light, and I see freedom, light, and space. So she's now having a very interesting, she's seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And she says the opposite of that is black, suffocation, smothering, heaviness over your body, and not enough air. So this is very deep. This is the matridonal state at a very deep level. So for the first time, she can see the door opening up, and so she's ready. And then she says, this is always something I ask my patients, what do you want at this point? And she says, I feel homeopathy has got me into a very different state of awareness. I really don't want to lose this. I was very much in my head before, but I was not as aware of my body, but now I want to keep that connectedness, and I want to be pregnant now. So she's ready for this, right? So at this stage, what we do is I decide to use amniotic fluid 1 one dose each week for 4 weeks when I see her next time, right? Because I just want to accelerate the process, because she is already moving in that direction. And she's waited, she's healed for 6 months, and she's ready for me. And that's exactly what happens. She emails me in 2 weeks and she says she's pregnant. And she was absolutely over the moon. But now we have to have, there's another hurdle. She embarks on this new journey, new stage in her motherhood journey. But now we need to support her so that she can go into full term and she can pass that hurdle and be okay, and everything falls in place. So that's part 3 of her journey, and we'll talk about this in the next video, and we'll cover what other aspects and what other blocks come up while she's pregnant and how we take her to the next part of her journey. All right. So hope that helps, and hope that helps you understand the role of these matridonals as we are working in different parts of her journey, and how each layer and each stage opens up whenever she's ready, and how we work with what's coming up and what's emerging, and then taking her one step deeper and one step further. So that's it from me. If you have any questions, please bring them on, and thank you for the questions last time, and I'm happy to answer more if they are, and we'll go from here. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in part 3 in the next video. Take care.